Can you tell me about Amazon Route 53?
Sure. Route 53 is a domain name system, or DNS service, that gives developers and businesses a reliable and cost-effective way to route end users to Internet applications.
What is DNS?
DNS is the Internet service that acts as a phone book to translate human-readable names, like www.example.com, to numeric IP addresses that computers use to connect to each other.
How does DNS translate a domain name to a computer-readable IP?
When a user opens a browser and types in a domain name, the computer will first communicate with the local DNS resolver, typically at the local Internet service provider, to see if it can match the name with any recently cached information from previous queries. If there's a match, the resolver answers with the IP address, and the query is resolved. If the local DNS resolver doesn't have the domain name cached, the DNS system will continue using a process called recursion.
How does recursion work?
The local resolver communicates with the Internet's root servers to locate the .com top-level DNS servers. Then the resolver communicates with the .com DNS server to locate the DNS server for the domain name. This will return information about the DNS provider. The local resolver then queries the returned name servers that have information about example.com, searching for www. When using Route 53 as your DNS provider, the query always goes to the closest server location to reduce query latency. The Route 53 server will return the IP address, which enables the browser to load the website or application.
Sounds good. Is Route 53 reliable and scalable?
Absolutely. Route 53 has globally distributed DNS servers, providing the ability to consistently answer queries and offering the level of dependability required by major applications. Route 53 is also designed to scale automatically to handle very large volumes or spikes in DNS queries, without the need to reserve capacity or take any other action.
Great. What are the costs?
With Route 53, you only pay for what you use. You are charged based on the number of hosted zones you have and the number of queries received. There are no minimum charges, setup fees, or usage commitments.
Great. How do I get started?
You should start with the domain name, which you can purchase through Route 53, or, if you already have a domain name registered elsewhere, you can either transfer it to Route 53 or keep it with your current registrar and only use Route 53 for DNS. It's worth noting that if you buy a domain from Route 53, a hosted zone will be created for you automatically, so you do not have to create one yourself. The next step is to create a hosted zone for your domain name. After the zone is created, you can create records within the hosted zone. These records are the entries that map an IP address to each domain name or subdomain.
Can Route 53 be used with other AWS services?
Yes, you can use Route 53 to map domain names to various AWS resources. Also, by using AWS Identity and Access Management, IAM, you can control who can access and update the data in your hosted zones. You can also use alias records that are a Route 53 specific feature to map your domain to various supported AWS resources.
Okay, that's good to know. How can I configure Route 53?
You can configure your DNS settings with the AWS Management Console, or by using the API or SDKs.
Great. So how can I get started with Route 53?
Simple. You can sign up and get started within minutes from the AWS Management Console. Let me show you how easy it is to use Route 53. First, I'll create and configure a hosted zone, add a health check, and create 2 DNS records with a failover. Finally, we can view the failover from the primary DNS entry to the secondary entry. First, I will manually create a Route 53 hosted zone for a domain that I have. Go to the Route 53 Service Console, and in the navigation pane, click Hosted Zones. Click Create Hosted Zone and fill in the hosted zone details. The zone does not automatically connect to your domain name. One way to look at it is that the registrar denotes the owner of the domain, while the DNS provider denotes the host. To link the two together, the registrar needs to be updated with the name servers from the hosted zone in the DNS provider. Here I used Route 53 as the registrar, so I must edit the name servers in the domain section of Route 53. The hosted zone will automatically have 2 records. copy the values from the NS record and paste them into your domain registrar.
That was easy. So what's next?
Now I will create a DNS record for the domain using the IP address of my web server. In the navigation pane, click Hosted Zones, and then click the zone that you created. Click Create Record Set, and enter the appropriate values as shown here. Click Create. I can now see my website or application by typing my domain name into a browser.
So that's all it takes to create a DNS record?
Yes, it's very simple. Now I will show you how to create a health check to monitor your server. In the navigation pane, click Health Checks, and click Create Health Check. Enter the values as shown here and click Next. For Create Alarm, click Yes and fill in the required values. Finally, click Create Health Check.
So, I'll get an email notification whenever a web server is not responding?
Yes, that's correct. Now I'll show you how to configure a failover record so that when your EC2 server fails, your domain will fail over to a static website on Amazon S3, so your end users never see a server error. Click Hosted Zones, and click the hosted zone you created. Click the A record and change it to a failover routing policy. Define it as the primary, click on Yes for Associate Health Check, and select a health check from the list. Click Save Record Set. Click Create Record Set to create an alias A record for failover to Amazon S3 using the values shown here. In order to use an S3 bucket as your backup site, you will first have to create the S3 bucket with the same name as the DNS record and enable website hosting on that bucket. In the Alias Target drop-down list, below S3 website endpoints, select the endpoint that will be used as your backup. Configure the remaining settings for a secondary failover record as shown here, and click Create.
So, if my EC2 server stops responding, the health check will detect that it's unhealthy and fail over to the static site on Amazon S3, right?
Exactly. Finally, let's take a look at how that works. First, I'll terminate the web server using the EC2 Management Console, and then go back into Route 53 to monitor the health check. After the health check shows that the status is unhealthy, you can enter the domain in a browser again to see how Route 53 has switched the location returned for your domain to the backup S3 static website.
So, where can I try this out?
You can try all of this in your AWS account by opening Route 53. But if you'd like the chance to experiment with Route 53 for free, you can go to run.quicklabs.com to start out with a free self-paced lab. While you're there, check out the other free Introduction to AWS training to learn about more AWS products and services. You can play around without having to open an account.